Right? All right, we got it now. All right, so I think just what I was thinking we would do is just say our names, pronouns, and where we live, and then a little bit about like what kind of experience you have already and what drew you into applying to Collab Lab, or if you're a part of Collab Lab, how you got here. So my name is April, and I am a mentor on the team, and I work currently at 1Password. And I've been there for just about 1.5 years and had about a 6-month internship prior to that. So just shy of 2 years on my experience. And what drew me to Collab Lab was the fact that I was a self-educated developer, and there aren't a lot of formalized programs to help you figure out how to get going in this industry. There's a lot of stuff set aside for those who've gone through university programs and even to some extent boot camps. But for those of us self-educated, it's a little bit harder. And so I was lucky enough to get involved with the program that gave me the internship I did. And through that, learned teamwork and collaboration and all of that in that process, and recognized the value that that gives and wanted to contribute to this organization. So that is me. And I'll pass it over to Connie. Oh, sorry, why did I say Connie? Yenli, my sorry.
I know. Well, there's a Connie on the call.
I think there is. Oh, there is a Connie on the call. See, that's why I was
How about
so
Connie
confused.
goes first?
Connie, you go ahead and go first. See, I'm not as confused as I thought I was.
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name's Connie Tran. I am currently in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am one of the developers on the team, ready to be mentored by you all. My background is actually in, I guess, in technical project management. So I kind of started 6 years ago as like a business analyst, and then kind of moved my way up to like project manager. So I've kind of been in the digital space for actually quite a while. I work with a digital agency out of Atlanta as a project manager now, doing web development and app development projects. Decided to switch to programming just because, I don't know, I'm a nerd, I guess. And I went and graduated from a boot camp last August. I wanted to join Collab Lab because I'm just all about community. It just is, I think, something super lacking in the software space. Like, there's a lot of forums and there's a lot of asynchronous and there's a lot of chats, and like, we're all so chat fatigued, and it's like, it's so hard to find that face-to-face like community. So that's what drew me to Collab Lab. So I'm really excited to collaborate.
Awesome. And I realized when Stacy put up the thing, I forgot to do my pronouns. I'm she, her, hers.
Yes, I was about to forget the same thing. Pronouns are she, her. And I will pass it to Andrew.
All right, cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Hedges. Pronouns he, him. Located in Portland, Oregon. And let's see. My experience with coding, Stacy's heard this once today already, but my experience with coding goes back to 8th grade, which most of you weren't born when I was in 8th grade, but I spent a summer mowing lawns and saving up money, and I bought a little computer, which back then, this is a 3D printed version of it. It's the TI-99 4A, and you would connect it to your TV, and you would turn it on, and you'd have a BASIC prompt. So you just sit there and just have to like figure things out in BASIC. I went through the manual, wrote a couple simple games and stuff back in 8th grade. Convinced my parents to let me go to a computer camp the next summer where we programmed on Apple IIe's. I'm talking Stone Age here. And then I didn't do much with it. I actually went through, I think I took one programming class in high school, and then didn't do anything with it in university. Spent 7 years working in higher education administration, which, you know, I was not a programmer at all in that space. Along the way there, they invented the web. So I started messing around with that as a hobby, and then eventually decided I wanted to do that full time. So in 1998, became a freelancer, and I've been programming ever since. So I'm pretty much self-taught. I mean, I have taken a class or two here or there, but really self-taught in this space. But I also started when it was a lot simpler. So I have a lot of empathy for what you all have to, like, it's just so complicated now. So I'm really glad you're all here. The thing that I guess drew me to create Collab Lab is just, the community that we're creating here, and just how there's such a need to break down the barriers and open the gates to tech for people like yourselves. So yeah, just thrilled to have all of you here, and I'm excited for your next 8 weeks. So maybe Ander, can you go next?
Hi, I'm Ander. I use they, them pronouns. My experience coding, I actually started making websites a really long time ago when things were also much, much simpler. And you did not have to know very much to make a website that was, pretty much to the standard. And I have been doing that as a freelancer and slowly learning more. But yeah, for quite a few years now. And I guess I'm kind of at the place where I'm wanting to kind of become a better engineer, improve my coding, and work on bigger projects, because I've worked with a lot of nonprofits and smaller clients, and on those kind of jobs that start to be a little bit repetitive, and I don't always have the budget to really take time to learn and expand and build really big, exciting, complicated things that I would like to do. And I also, while I do get to collaborate with other people on projects, I rarely get to work with other developers. I've worked with one person that I've trained, so they're worse than I am, which is, it's interesting to train someone when you don't know probably enough to be doing that yourself, and then to come back in a few years and say, oh no, I've created a monster. So yeah, that my interest in Collab Lab, it seemed like a really welcoming, a cool community. And I love the idea of building something with other people and working on something collaboratively. So I was very excited to get involved for those reasons, and hopefully, to be able to learn from you all.
Yay.
I will pass it to, Nick.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick. Pronouns are he, him. I'm in Washington, D.C. And I guess my background with programming is I'm also self-educated. So been teaching myself and mostly in JavaScript for the last year and a half or two. And I've gotten recently in the past year, I've gotten some good experience working just as a volunteer for an NGO that I was connected with through a friend. And I guess the way I found Collab Lab was pretty random, actually. I think I was just looking at Twitter, and some developer person that I followed retweeted something that was a conversation about getting into the field for people without a computer science degree. And then one person in that mentioned Collab Lab. So I found it, and I'm at the point where I'm really looking for chances to work with other people and as part of a team. And also what was especially appealing about this is getting a chance to have some mentorship. So being self-educated, the one thing I've really lacked is just having someone to ask questions. So, I code things on my own and they work, but I kind of never know if I did something the best way or, if there was a way easier way to do something. I feel like I've learned some lessons the hard way. So, so looking forward to, both collaborating and getting some help for once.
Awesome.
Oh, and I guess I can pass it to Cameron.
Well, I am Cameron, he, him pronouns. Usually I'm based in Portland, Oregon. I think by next meeting, I'll be back there. My history with web development, I guess I started out in fine art and then woodworking and needed a website. So Adobe Dreamweaver was my first foray into web development. I realized pretty quickly that I didn't want to pay for plugins. So ended up doing some research, and I ended up at a boot camp. After the boot camp, found a job at a small startup for about a year. COVID had its impacts on that company as well. And I'm now doing data implementation engineering with a company called Soft Acrylic. And that's kind of what brought me to this point. I found Collab Lab on Twitter. I think I followed Andrew originally. Applied to Collab Lab as like to be a collabie at one point. That didn't work out, but decided that I wanted to be able to help out and help other people gain a sense of community that I was very, very lucky to have at the first web development job I had, and that's what brought me here. I will pass it off to Sheila.
All right, can y'all hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. Because at first I thought my mic wasn't working at first. Let's see. How did I get started? I'm in North Carolina. So I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I'm not too far from, I think, where Connie's from or where she's at now. And let's see, I would say my first ever taste of web development would really have to be when I had created a radio station website or whatever for I did an internet radio station. I'm sorry, it's like a little gnat flying around here. So if you see me going like this, it's because I'm trying to make way above. I realized I had I really did a template or downloaded a template, but what had intrigued me was just pretty much learning like HTML and CSS, and actually made the template made the website look really good. So I was just like, I just kind of took it and started learning what each thing was like, what like about what the P tag was, what's the what everything did from building my own website in the first place. So, and then I got interested in it, and then I started going to Lambda school. Like I tried to self-study or teach myself, but for me, it was just like I felt like I needed something structured more so. So I ended up going to Lambda school. I graduated from that in November of last year. So I just been trying to do that and find a job. And I wanted to do Collab Lab because at the end of the Lambda school curriculum, they do labs like right at the end where you're collaborating and working with a team. And I realized, and you're working on a project, and I realized I really, really like that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and so actually how I found this, it wasn't on Twitter. This was actually in one of Lambda's, somebody had posted it like in like, I guess, I can't remember which channel it was. It was like their job search or random or something channel. And they had posted about Collab Lab. And I was like, you know what? I want to try that.
Great. We're glad you're here. Yay.
So that's how I ended up here. Sorry for making a long story. But I'm really glad to be here. I hope to even after this, I hope to continue doing stuff with Collab Lab. And that was one of my questions I had is like, if we do this and we really like it, how do we continue on?
Oh, we've got ways for you, Sheila. Don't you worry. Stay
Careful what you ask
forever.
for, girl.
One of us. We'll definitely talk whenever we get to the end of this cohort about how you can continue contributing. We'd love for everybody to stay around as long as you want. Once a collabie, always a collabie.
Yeah.
And then I think the other question I had was like, I guess as a group, I think the only thing that I noticed that we're working with Firebase, and that was like the only thing I'm not too familiar with. So I don't know if that's going to be an issue. That's the only questions I had for
Lots of
anybody.
people come in
Yep.
not knowing it at all. It's fine. Yeah.
It's
Coach you
pretty
through it.
common, I think, for a lot of people when they start a job to have a few of the technologies as a part of the stack to be something that you haven't necessarily worked in before. So it's just a added little bit of a learning curve, and that's all right. It's all about
Yeah.
learning. Awesome.
But yeah,
Who do you want to go to next?
Who has it with you? 'Cause I think I came in a few minutes behind.
Yenli,
Okay.
Stacey, and Juliana.
Juliana, because she raised her pinky up.
Hey y'all, I'm Juliana. I'm based in Colombia. I've been coding for about 5 years now. I also started sort of informally, like through websites, and I had the really good luck that I learned to program in Colombia, where we have a really active tech community. So I already had this feeling that like learning through community was really cool, and then when I found out that Collab Lab was doing that, I really wanted to get involved and help out. I'm joining the meeting today because I am the code of conduct responder for this group. So I also just wanted to take a little bit of a moment to tell y'all about this. Yeah, TLC has a big connection to Colombia because everywhere Colombians go, we must take 5 or 7 friends. So in the chat, I just pasted the link to the code of conduct. As y'all probably know by now, TCL is really committed to the psychological safety of all the folks who are involved in the program. And so I do encourage you, if you haven't yet, please go and read the code of conduct. We do expect everyone who participates in the program to play by the rules of the code of conduct. And also there's like a whole team and a whole structure to support y'all in this endeavor of psychological safety. So do also check it out. Make sure so that anytime you feel uncomfortable, you can kind of like identify like, oh yeah, that was cool, wasn't, whatever. And I'm always here to talk to you guys. So to y'all. So if you want to reach out, I'm on Slack. And I will also be reaching out to Collabs in about 2 or 3 weeks just to schedule some informal 15-minute chats, get to know y'all, and also hear how your experience is going. So don't worry if I reach out, it's not an enormous, like it's part of the process. Any other questions, definitely do reach out. All right. With that, I'll pass it to Jen. Jen Lee?
Yeah, hi. Yenli is she, her. So going to be a mentor, a second-time mentor. So I got into coding back in college, creating GeoCities, HTML, laying out things with tables, GeoCity using front page. This is all very antique things, but Andrew would know that. So I've kind of stumbled through my whole career doing programming. Went through burnout, just kind of been very lost because it seems long on LinkedIn, but it's also been difficult. And one of the things that's missing is community, right? Learning with community and tech, how it was back then, seems easy to get into, but there's a lot of problems. And I could definitely share about that if y'all want to have conversations about those. And I think that's why I'm here, is looking for community, looking for how to help each other, how to network. To be in, tech is to constantly learn. And that's where a community is very important, and how to leverage that and how to reach for that. And that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm going to be here for a long time, whether Andrew or Stacey likes it or not. So I think that's for me. Have Stacey gone yet?
No,
I haven't. And Yenli, please stay forever. We love you endlessly. Anyway, hi, I'm Stacey, co-founder of Collab Lab alongside Andrew, also code of conduct trained responder alongside Juliana in Sacramento. Why Collab Lab? Okay, so we all know like our whole world is ran on tech, obviously. And it's very much created by one demographic of people, and that's not the way that it should be. But I am sick of watching people like me and underrepresented people struggle to get their foot in tech and then not succeed when they're there because they're not being supported and they don't have those communities. Sorry, I'm on my walking treadmill, so I'm like winded right now. So we created Collab Lab to have like a safe space for folks like us to learn and grow and essentially get the skills and the experience that we need to get our foot in the door of tech. Because we think that when more of us get into those seats as developers, we can bust down the doors for more people like us to fill those seats alongside of us and start diversifying tech. So I'm here to spend my time helping people and trying to lift as I climb. That's why I'm here.
Awesome. Yay. Awesome. All right. Well, that was fun. I love learning about new people. It's exciting. We're gonna go ahead and shift over to our learning module this right now, and that is going to be about Git this week. So I know many of you have probably done a fair amount in Git with your own work. Some of it may or may not have been collaborative work in regards to sharing code with others, or you might have limited experiences, but it's just really important for us that we know everybody's at least at the same base level, that we all understand the basics and can use those to, be successful here at Collab Lab. I'm trying to find just my tab to share. All right, so how to get at Collab Lab. What we're going to cover through this presentation is just the basics. Like I said, Git is an incredibly powerful tool, and there are so many layers of things that you can do with it. But generally speaking, the things that we're going to cover today are the things that you would use day in and day out on a consistent basis. A lot of those other tools and features that you can use within Git don't get used as much. And often, I mean, honestly, I have to look up things all the time because I'm like, wait, I haven't done that in a while. How do I do that again? So, but these are the things that'll definitely get you going. And again, they're the things that you will be repetitively using day in and day out, both with Collab Lab as well as in your future profession. So first, we're going to talk about creating and switching branches, which is Git checkout. We're going to see within the Git process, you stage your changes. It's going to be the Git add command. And then once those changes and you want to actually save them, then you're going to commit them. When you want to share them up to a remote so that other developers can have access to that, you push it. And when you want to take code down from a repo that somebody else has worked on, you're going to be pulling that. Once you have pushed up your changes into a repo and you want to request that those changes get added into the main branch, you open up what's called a pull request or a PR. Those are the things we're going to kind of go over and cover in more detail as we go through. So some basic Git terms, the repository. So that's the collection of the files that's held under source control. In our case, we're using Git. There's a few other systems out there. Git is by and far, in my experience, been the one that the majority of people use. So the remote is the origin repository where it is online. So using GitHub, there's also GitLab and I can't even think of a Bitbucket, some other places where you can keep those repositories. For this program, we'll be using GitHub. A branch is a working copy of the repo. So the main branch is the source of truth. And then your branch, your feature branch, is where you're going to be doing your work. Once you push that up and request that it get merged into the main branch, if it ends up going in there, it just becomes a part of the main. But while you're working on it, it is considered a branch of a feature branch. Commit, again, that's when you are saving a set of your changes that you've made. And the reference of head refers to the last commit on that branch. And then a pull request, the documents. So you send that up and then you open up the information to say how the changes were made, why you made the changes, why you think it should be merged with main, and basically give the information that's needed for those who run that repository to make the decision whether or not those changes should in fact be added. Here's just kind of a little visual of what that process looks like. So you're going to have, if you're working on this, the top here is going to be your system. And then this bottom here is the main branch. So if you were to pull it and then set up, so if the initial commit and then somebody added in a button, and then you pull that into your local system and you create a branch because you wanted to do some additional work off of that. So you're going to work on that. You're going to add some styles to that button or the page in general. Maybe you're going to add some tests. And while you were working on that branch, there was another developer that went in and made an update. They updated some text somewhere in there. And so that, and they pushed that and put it into main. So now that lives on main, but it doesn't live on your branch yet. If you then do the pull request and your items get merged, then your branch merges in once it's accepted, and it gets accepted into that. And this is what you would ultimately be the final result of that main branch. So you'd have the initial commit, the add button, the update text that another developer put in place while you were working on yours, and then your work would come through, and we now have the main branch is up to date with everybody's work. The commands that you're going to need to be using are, to start with, branching. You're going to want to get very familiar with the checkout, because it's not only going to be useful for when you're creating your own branches, but it's also when you're going to be switching branches, you're going to be checking out other people's feature branches and things like that. So the basic way to check out a branch off of main is to get checkout and then cool feature, which is the name of the branch. When you want to create a new branch, then you need to pass in the -B flag. So you would say get checkout -B, and then you would name your branch. And that then sets the branch up for you to be able to start working your and doing your feature work. Once you've got some changes made and you want to go ahead and push those or save those, the process for Git is you do have to add those changes into a staging area. And the nice thing about that is you don't have to add everything. So if you only wanted to add 1 or 2 files, you can do that through this add process versus adding everything. So in the top line here, you can see we do a git add, and we're only adding the button.js file to the staging so that we can commit just 1 file. If we wanted to commit all files, we can add the -A flag. And I know some of you are probably wondering, as I did, what is the difference between -A and dots? Because honestly, I more often am one who says git add dot. So the main difference is that the git add dot stages new files and modifications without deletions. So whereas the -A flag puts everything in, any changes, modifications, and deletions that have happened on tracked files. So what was interesting about that is I had done there was a merge that I had done with at work, and there were deleted files that didn't get deleted after I did an add and a continue, and I was so confused. And now it's been like 4 months, and I'm like looking back going, oh, it's because I did a git add dot instead of a git add -A. So small distinction, generally speaking, the dot is probably going to be sufficient, but if you want to make sure that you have everything, the -A flag will definitely make sure that you have that. Once you've staged the changes that you want to commit, then you can save them into a record with the git commit commands. So once it's staged, you can do git commits, and then it's going to ask you, it's going to want you to leave a message, which essentially states what you did on that commit, like what kind of changes you made on that. And there is the option to do a git commit AM. And what that does is that actually adds all those changed files and then lets you leave an inline message. So if you wanted to skip the git add, you could do that by just utilizing the git commit AM, and it will do both of those. It will add all your changes and put an inline message in. Once those are committed and you're ready to push them up so that other developers can view them and or pull them down to work on them, then you use the git push command. The very first time that you send that up, you're going to want to pass the -U flag, which sets an upstream reference to that branch on the remote. If you forget that flag, Git will actually say to you, do you want to do this? And it'll give you a command. I believe it uses --set upstream, which is the same as -U. So if you see that, it's essentially the -U is the abbreviated version of that. And then origin refers to the remote branch I think it can be named anything, but I've only ever seen it called origin. So that would be for somebody with a bit more experience to specify on whether that's different in some cases. And then once you have done that, your initial push with the U flag and then the origin and the name of your feature branch, from that point, any changes and additions that you want to make onto that branch, you can just do git push, and Git will already know which branch to send those changes to. When you need to pull code down in order to work on it, the git pull is going to be the command that you would use for that. And it is recommended, and get into a good habit, that you make sure, particularly when you are starting a new branch, that you have pulled the latest main, so that you have all of the changes that have happened on main up to that point before you start building out onto the next feature that you're going to start working on. And the way that you would do that is you're going to git check out main, and then you're going to run a git pull, and that's going to pull all those changes out. And then from main, you can then do your git checkout -b and the name of your feature branch. And now you know that you're on the latest copy of main. I also recommend, if you're working on a feature branch with another developer and you step away for a while, even if it's just to run to the grocery store, or you take a break at night and come back in the morning, that you do a quick git pull, just to make sure that if anything's been pushed up while you were working, that you have those changes in place. It just alleviates the complications that happen when you try to push something up and you have a commit that you didn't get yet. Once you have your commit and you've pushed, and you want to open up a pull request so that your work can be reviewed by others, and GitHub, you would go over to GitHub onto the repo, and there's the tab here at the top for pull requests, and then you can open up a new pull request. If you do this process shortly after you push, I believe it's like 10 minutes, might be 15 minutes. There's usually a little selection up here at the top that says, you just pushed this new branch. Do you want to open a new pull request? And you can just select that button and it'll take you into the pull request. If you're coming back to it at a later time, you can use this, or if not, you can also just use this and select which branch that you're wanting to open up a pull request for. Sometimes when you're pulling code down and you need to merge it in, you're going to run up against conflicts. And essentially what a conflict is just two people have made a change at the same location in the code, and Git isn't sure which one needs to stay. So it needs you as the human to take a look at it and decide which of these is the most up to date, which pieces of this need to stay, and which pieces are getting replaced and are not the correct ones. It's a little scary the first time it happens, but it's not that bad once you figure the process out. VS Code makes it really nice if you're using that. It does have this where it says the head here is your current changes, and then the little dash essentially marks the difference. And then between the dashes and this test right here, the incoming changes, is where that there is a difference on this. And so you can either decide to keep the current changes, accept the incoming changes, accept both. And there's even a selection that isn't being shown here where you can actually compare them side by side, so you can get a better visual of what exactly were the changes, so you can decide which are the ones that are the correct ones. So if you run into that and the first time and you are like, I don't want it, just send out an SOS, and one of us mentors will get to you as soon as we can to help you, walk you through the process. Once you've gone through it 1 or 2 times, it becomes pretty easy to go through. Generally speaking, it's just that first time can be a little overwhelming and alarming, but it's common and it's not a big deal, and we're here to help you. So that is the basics of Git for our Collab experience. There's some additional references here for the Git documentation, as well as some really great guides through Atlassian. I never know how to say their name. I don't know why I can't. And then, of course, obviously Google and Stack Overflow, and us, your team. I'm going to be posting these slides at the end in the Slack channel as well, so that you'll have reference to not only these links, but also on that first slide, I believe there was some links that take you to the information regarding the different commands. And now if anybody has any questions about, I guess, Git in general, but yeah.
How
One thing
familiar
I do want to
are
say
all of you?
real
Oh
quick,
yeah, go ahead.
When I started, Git was super overwhelming and concerning. But it's important to remember that the point of Git is to be there in case something goes wrong, so that you can go back and you won't lose everything. And that is the importance of it. I didn't get it at first. I didn't understand why I had to learn this, but it did come in handy at times. So.
100%.
Git
It's really
branches.
hard to actually lose anything, right?
Yeah, it really is. And that's something I've discovered in time. I know there was one time I did a bad rebase and I thought for sure that a month and a half's worth of work was toast. Only to, and then the senior dev that I was working with was like, we got this. And they had the skills and the tools to be able to go in and find the commits that we needed. So as long as you've made your commits, it's highly unlikely that there isn't a way to get that work back. So commit often. That's my advice. Commit often. And the thing I love about using commits and branches is that I can play around. Like I'm not risking anything. I make a feature branch and I go in and I add a library and I start throwing stuff on there and everything breaks and the whole site doesn't display and it's a train wreck. I just go back to main, delete that branch and try again on a new branch or vice versa with commits. You've gotten things broken, you get to the point where it's fixed and now you need to add another element. Great, commit everything. And now I can for sure go back to a working copy. No matter what I do from that point forward, I have that working commit that I can go to. So yeah, branches and commits are my best friends.
That's awesome. How familiar are all of you with Git? Have you worked with it before? You worked on branches before? Yeah, a couple of you at least, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say like moderately. I've I've worked with branches, like the basics that we kind of just talked about.
Okay, cool, good.
Great.
If you don't have questions right now, which you don't seem to, just know that you probably will at some point, and we are all totally in this together. So ask it publicly in Slack. Somebody else is probably wondering the same thing. And don't
100%.
ever feel like you're bothering anybody or the question is a bad question, because that is not the case at all. So just be really loud if you come across struggles with Git or the projects you're working on or anything. We are totally here for you.
My main thing, and maybe we're going to cover this, but I'm always really curious, like what kinds of conventions are best to use in terms of, like, I was taught a little bit when I did do recently, finally, a boot camp after many years of being self-taught and after using version control very badly and slightly improving, like very much like that XKCD comic where you start out and you're keeping good messages and then you're like, my hands are typing words, or you're just not really recording anything. But I tried to do it usefully, but I mostly work on projects with myself. So I'm, when I was in the boot camp, I learned things like you're supposed to use, there were like a couple keywords like feet and fix and all of those things. I'm sure everyone does it differently. And then there were just so many situations where I was like, this doesn't seem like any of those 4 different situations. And I've seen a bunch of tutorials where people, have different practices. So I guess I'm just curious, like what is common, what we do in Collab Lab.
Those are fantastic thoughts. And a lot of it's going to rely on where you go to work and what your team decides on is their best practice. Because like you said, there are so many ways to do these different things. At Collab Lab, we don't set too many conventions because we want you to feel comfortable and explore, like using your energy and your time to explore the collaboration aspect rather than the like, did I do things per the rules that our team has set? If your team wants to decide on like specific conventions that you want to commit to following, that's totally fine. But your time here will be more focused around the collaboration aspect, and you probably won't get, unless you specifically ask for feedback on like tactical things or code things, or for example, branch names and stuff. We do have a convention, but again, it's like, it's not our main focus. So you're not going to like get in trouble if you don't follow it, as long as your team is on the same page. But those are great experiences to learn from your mentors, and your mentors, one of them will have an office hours each week. So in those office hours, if you want to ask things like, on the teams you've worked on, what kind of conventions have you used? They can probably like share a lot of experiences and insights that could be fun to hear.
That is definitely the case. Totally open to talking more about that, maybe in an office hour or something. But I know we use certain conventions at my last job, so we can talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Should we move on to talk about the issues that y'all will be working on? Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna, so my screen, let me know if you don't see my screen. I want to show the project board just so that y'all can get familiar with it. This week, we're going to work on issue 1 and issue 2. I'm going to talk through each one first, and then we'll see who wants to work on what. So this is one way for you to look at your issue. You can click here for full detail. So issue 1 is, as a component, I want to be able to read and write to Firestore database so that users can persist information. So for this task, the way that our issues are structured is the AC, this is the acceptance criteria. So when you're building out and doing this PR, definitely stick to fulfilling this acceptance criteria. There's a lot you can do, but we wanted to structure this so that you can get this done within the 5-hour work time that is allotted so that you can do other things. And so focus on meeting acceptance criteria, and then we also have notes. So one of the acceptance criteria is we want you to add the project dependencies. So this is Firebase and then React Firebase hooks. So in this project, we recommend you to use React hooks because one, it's the modern way of doing things, classes, you know, it's okay if you know classes. Some workplaces still use classes, but that is going to get deprecated as React starts upgrading and you get into newer version. So it's good to learn the newer things. So I recommend looking up, researching on Firebase and researching on React Firebase hooks to see how to work with that. We also included some notes down here on how to use it. So you just want to create, so really focus on here is to connect to the database when connecting through using your app. So your app can just be a button or just some sample text. You can create a dummy component that says send, I did like a really simple like boop and you don't have to worry about how your database needs to be structured now. The point of this is the hardest part a lot of times when building application is these kind of configuring to make sure it connects to the database correctly. So do the simple, I want to connect to the database. I can send a sample content to the database. You view the database in the console, you see the changes. And when you make changes in the database, you see it reflected on the front end as well. So that is what this task is trying to achieve. So let's see, notes. Try not to do too much. Like I know, like you're very tempted to like, oh, let's style it, let's make things pretty. The point we're starting here is to start with the functional connecting part. And then there's plenty of time later on. If you look through the other issues, there are tasks for making it pretty and building out and thinking about user experience. So that's this task. I'm going to pause right here and make sure if anybody have questions about this issue and what that needs to be done.
I have one question. So are the 2 dependencies, have they already been added into the project? Do we need to do that?
Yes, yes. They are not added. So it is
Okay.
part of the task to add the dependencies. Yeah, so it's part of the project to do that. And this is something that you will do on a regular dev jobs, right? Like sometimes you can be adding a feature that requires using certain packages that you've done the research for. For this one, we want to simplify it for you to, we're recommending these packages. So you can approach this as you're working on a team, your team lead or somebody else had already done the research and is saying, hey, now do this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Stacy and Andrew pointed out in the chat too, the configurations and things have been set up so that the database is ready to go on the database side, so that you won't have to, do that right now.
Mm-hmm. Also want to highlight that it is very common to start a job and not know a lot of the things. I recently started a job in May and I don't know 80% of the stuff. So definitely, you look at this as a developer, you come in, you're like, oh, okay, so these are things that are recommended by the team lead. What do I need to do research on? So you go and you do research, you Google, dig through the docs, try to understand what these two dependencies, like what, why, and what it can do for you before you start coding. So that's like one of the steps as part of this issue. Yeah, and let's see, is there any other questions? I want to make sure that I'm clear on this one so you know how to work on it. One other thing that I also want to highlight that in this issue at the very bottom, there's this part with the right and leaving a comment. Anytime that you're given an issue and you're trying to figure out things or things are not clear, you can leave comments here to the product person like, hey, I'm not sure what you're asking me. Can you clarify certain things, or just putting some comments here for your future self. Like, let's say between your pair, one of you kind of broke up the task and go, okay, you're going to research this package, I'm going to research this package. And as you're researching thing, you want to share information, you can also add it as here notes to say, hey, when I come back to this, I'm going to remember that this particular doc is really helpful in stepping me to these things. So there, we're going to go over this, or it's one of our learning modules in terms of like how to communicate as a dev. There's many conversations are being had and can be done in many different places. And this is one of the place to kind of share that information. Okay, and so is that issue clear before I go on to the next one? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go back here and open the second one. Okay, so for the second task is, as a user, I want to be able to navigate between the list view and the add an item view so that the interface is clearly delineated between viewing and adding. So here in the acceptance criteria, it tells you to add the React Router DOM. So that would be the package that you add, and that will what you would use to help you create the different routes in a single page app. And so the second criteria is links are present and persistent at the bottom of the page. So at the very bottom of the page, you can have a list view and add an item view. And when you click on one, you should be able to, the view should change, and you can put placeholder things there. So whichever view is selected, the corresponding link should display it in bold text so that it indicates to the user that you're on that page. You want the user to know that you're in a list view or add an item. And those can be, so one of the things that you can do here is just create a component placeholder. So like a view, a list view component, and add an item view component, and just have placeholder text in there for now. The big part of this project, this issue, is to create navigating the routes, not the individual components. So I want to make sure that's clear. And again, here is, there's a little notes on what you can do to have the links positioned at the very bottom. So a lot of these things, again, are you just want to wireframe this to work, and it functionally works and it's okay. There'll be plenty of time later on to do like the design and change things around when you get there. But right now we're focusing on the simple aspect of giving someone the functional of 2 views and how they can go back and forth and know where they are. So I'm going to open up for questions.
I have a question. So you mentioned design. I watched the video. I'm sure some of us have. Can we kind of, what is the direction with the UI? Should we make it like the video? Is it free reign?
It's going to be free reign, and you will have, as a team, you get the last 2 sprint to go through the design process, decide how you want to, like you can build and design everything yourself. It's free reign, and that will be taking care of the last 2 weeks of our 8-week thing. And that's when I see a lot of teams have a lot of fun. You can really go crazy, come up with your names, you choose your colors. But if you want to start thinking about it as a team, that's also a good thing. You can create boards and such, but as we're building out the functional part, it's a good idea to just focus on the functional, and then you slowly layer up the functional part until it gets to a good state, and then you do the design.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
It's actually a common workflow, at least for me, it has been. Like, is throw a button on there and make sure, like, the first thing console log click me, does it even connect, and then from there you just build the next layer, the next layer, the next layer, with the design ultimately landing close to the end.
I like that explanation, April. Yeah, the layering of functionality.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, I want to put it out there to the 2 pairs. So for this week, is Anders and Sheila is going to be a pair, and then Nick and Connie is going to be a pair. So is there a certain issue that your pair wants to work on? Ender?
Oh, I was just going to say, Sheila, you can chime in, but I think it would be fun to work on the Firebase because we don't have any idea what we're doing. So it'd be a good thing to add to our, list of tools and technologies if we.
I love it. Jump feet first. Let's figure it out.
I agree.
I love that spirit. So good.
That's awesome.
I was going to say the same thing, but I didn't know how Andrew felt about it.
Fearless. I love it.
All right.
And Nick and Connie, don't worry, you're going to have plenty of time to work with Firebase through the course of the project. So, and you'll be reviewing their code as well. So even this at the end of this week, you'll be able to kind of see how they did their implementation.
Mm-hmm. So I'll assign those in a little bit. I have a hard time like trying to do 2 things at the same time.
Me too.
It's like when I try to do it, it's terrible. So one thing I do want to highlight is, how do I close this? So I want to review the engineering cadence, right? Let's see. So here in how we work, this is, so with every engineering team you join, there could be different cadence, right? And for here, we want to encourage this cadence. And I want to review this because I feel like as you're learning everything, there's a lot of new stuff like this week, next week, and it's just repetition is how we learn, is how we remember things, and it's how things become a habit and becomes less scary. And so for us, we really want to encourage the weekly cadence of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for the pairs to work together, schedule times, do your research, schedule time to pair and try to get as much done as you can the beginning of the week, because when working in a team and when doing code reviews and merging things, there's a potential of merge conflicts, right? There's a potential of getting feedback that you, one, need to understand what the feedback is, whether you should implement it or not. And just this cycle takes, it can take a long time. And depending on where you are, you want to be able to get to production by a certain day. So when you front load your stuff in the beginning of the week, then the rest of the time you give yourself lots of space to get feedback. And that's very, very important. Maybe I should say another very, as in, you know, the thing is with code reviews is everybody is busy and you want to get feedback. And the way to do that is, you know, you submit a PR, and some places you just hope and pray someone will review it. And some places, some people just don't have the time. They just want to focus their own little thing and they don't really get to it. And you may get feedback like really late in the week and you're like, oh no, I need to like do all these things, and it becomes a whole bigger thing where maybe the acceptance criteria were not written as clear as the ones here. So a lot of times it's you want to do a PR, you create a draft PR, you put it out there, you work in public, and you want people to see what you're doing, and you get feedback. You it's important to give feedback and change and keep iterating until you get to until it meets the acceptance criteria. So definitely for those, since we're meeting on a Sunday, if you find that you know, during the week it's hard to meet and you want to start coding today, definitely start if you have the time and it works better for your pair. And I also recommend that when you start working this with your pair and you spend about 30 minutes and you're both spinning your wheel and you're still really confused and you're like, what's going on here? I don't get this. Or like, are we missing something? Definitely don't go beyond an hour and more and just like bang your head. Definitely you hit that, you time box it and you ask questions, because you could be missing some information or missing some context that you know, we try to give everything to you, but at a lot of places it's the context. It's not that you it's not that we're stupid, it's we're missing context. So then if you're banging your head, ask for context. And so we really want to encourage, so one of the really important things about engineering and how to be a really productive team is the code reviews. So code reviews, right? Like it really benefits you to code review the other pair's work, because you know, the reality of being a software engineer is you're reading code more than you're writing. And the code review here is where we're trying to give you that practice. One, to read code and also to ask questions. It's to understand what the other team is building. Because this week, Andrew and Sheila is working on Firebase. But next week, there are some tasks that covers Firebase too. So it could be Nick and Connie who's going to work on Firebase things. And to understand what the other pair have done for their PR will help you be more successful and work faster for the next task. So this is, as you're layering the difficulty and functionality, you're building things, the complexity gets harder. Doing the code review is where you're gonna be able to move faster later. It feels like you're moving slow now. Let's see, what else? Let's see. Maybe I'll put it out there for questions and clarification.
I do want to note that your weekly pairing threads are up in Slack, so be sure to use that to communicate about your task and what you are all doing.
And I want to say that, you know, as you're coordinating, and it kind of referenced back to what I was talking about earlier, where when you're working on an issue, there's going to be many places where you're going to have conversations about what you're working on. And us mentors will be popping in there to see how the progress is going. And also if you have any questions, and it contains everything to that spot so that we know what's going on and we know when you need help, and we can help unblock you quicker that way. Let's see, we're kind of going over time. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to. Is there any other questions or concerns? You can also ask asynchronously as well. That's what Slack is for. We really encourage you to be loud and just ask. Huh? We're good? Okay. So I'll pass it to Cameron for setting up the branches.
Sure. I wasn't able to find if we have a naming convention. It sounds like we're a little bit loose on that branch naming convention portion of it, but we can
There
walk
was
through.
something somewhere, wasn't there, Andrew?
Yeah, we have a
Yeah, there
convention.
is.
It's
You do?
the
Okay.
the initials of the first person dash the initials of the second person dash some a
Oh.
couple words about the thing.
In my
And the
head,
name
I
of the
put that.
feature.
In my head, I put that as the commit convention, but I got it. Okay.
Oh right, yeah,
So let
that's
me-
the branches. Yeah.
Let me share a terminal real quick. Can you all see a terminal here?
Yep.
Great. I have a shell on. I'm going to pretend like you can't see this main portion here. So I'm in main right now. I'm going to do git checkout -b. I'm going to name my branch. It's going to be CS just for me right now. Dash fun new things, we'll say. So that creates a new branch. The next step I like to do just off the bat is if you're creating from a branch, is to git pull from the branch that you just created, just to ensure, git pull from the branch that you branched off of. So from main in this case. Just to make sure that fun new things is up to date with main. From here, you would do work, make your commits, and then push when you are ready to. Does anybody have any questions about creating a new branch? I mean, that was very quick.
That's
So
a
this-
really good question, Ander. I don't, right now, it doesn't really matter, whatever works best for you as a pair. I know there's going to be a learning module coming up in the next few weeks that kind of goes into a little bit more details in and around pair programming, but for the first couple of weeks, just find the tools and the things that work best for the two of you.
I have another question, which maybe will be covered later. Sorry, I feel like I have a lot of questions. I've been waiting many years to be able to ask questions. So when I've worked on different projects, especially in the boot camp, I found that there are a lot of different ways to organize things. So as a team, in terms of just like directory structure, how we're handling that, I was trained in like BEM methodology for all of my CSS classes, which I'd never done before, which I know some people use. Like, I imagine at some point we're going to discuss or talk about that so that we're not all just chaotically doing, things that are going to be a huge mess. But like, that's probably an important part of collaboration, right? Or
yes.
Is it not super important at this point? It probably doesn't matter that much because we're just doing some simple stuff and we can fix it. But I'm just curious.
Yeah, the nice thing that is you're coming into, there's already kind of a skeleton of the code base there. So you kind of can get a sense of the organization that's already in place and then build from that, and then renaming and relocating and, files and stuff in the future is easy. And we could definitely be handled as a team to make sure that we're all like organizing and structuring in the same way.
And there are lots of ways to structure an app, as
Yes.
you probably know. So, I mean, if you were to look back through the last 10 projects that teams have done, they're probably all structured slightly differently. Some teams will have, a CSS file next to the component file, and that's in a folder that's named, like, there's all kinds of ways you could do it. So, for now, just like do what makes sense to you. Like when you're merging, and kind of maybe next week, you'll have a little bit more of an app structure there, and you can kind of negotiate that, or give people ideas and code review and that kind of thing too. But you're right; those are good things to kind of work out at the beginning so the rest of the project goes more smoothly.
And I was going to say that those are excellent comments to put into a code review too. You know, I see that you put these into, you know, 4 different files. Is there a way that maybe we could put them each, you know, the 2 pair files into directories so that it's a little bit more intuitive for me? Like, and then as a team, we discuss.
Yeah, or Anders, I don't know if you want to like just put it in the Slack and ask us, like, hey, I was thinking about putting these 4 files here. Y'all cool with that? If not, we can like meet.
Yeah, let's start a thread. Just talk about like structure.
Yeah, anytime
Yeah.
I think structure, like large things that are going to affect the other team, like let's just Slack about it or meet if we need to. You know, it's all about communication.
Yep.
I had a question about the branch. So the branch name is like our 2 initials, but the branch only lives on one of our local machines, right? But I guess the expectation is we're pair programming, and then eventually that branch will get pushed up.
Yeah, it would originate. So when you first pair, one of the pairs is going to originate the branch, and then you can do the work together that way. And then you'll push that branch up and your teammate will be able to pull that work down and have it on their local system too. And that way, the next time you guys meet up, if you wanted that individual to do doing the actual driving and typing of the code, they have that branch up to date and on their system. And once you're done, you push it and the next person pulls it. So that you both stay.
That should be the very first step you do is create the branch, push it up, the other person pulls it down. Now you both have this, you can work in the same space. I mean, we're a little over time, but some other teams over the last day have just done that on the call. They had the pairs just get on and make sure everybody has access to the branches. So I would recommend that be the first thing you do when you pair.
Okay.
Good questions. I love all the questions.
I know. I'm like, keep them coming. What else do you have? What else are you curious about?
Do you all feel comfortable getting started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
Oh, one thing that I want to say real quick is I'm going to create a Slack reminder that's going to kick off on Wednesdays to say it's a midweek check-in, as in like, you know, what have you done? What else do you need to work on? Do you have any blockers? And it'll be a thread, and just to check in on like a Wednesday, say how your progress is, whether you need help. And that's a good question, Andrew. I will be hosting office hours this week. So after this, I will send a message. So a lot of things is going to happen in Slack because we're asynchronous. This is the only time that we're synchronous. So definitely I recommend, you know, being engaged, check often, and see what's going on, because there's going to be a lot of conversations that's going to be happening. You know, I'm going to post like, oh, I'm free this week to do office hours. So let me know so that I could schedule it, block out time from work and make sure that I'm available, and also where we can meet and such. Yeah, so I think I got that covered. If there's any questions.
Reminder to turn on your Slack, like our little TCL is 26 by default. It only will notify you for mentions. I would turn it on for like everything, like all messages.
Okay.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Don't
So,
want to miss stuff.
yep. I work remote and I work pretty early, so I will be sending message that really early. So one little tip is, you know, set times when you don't want the notification to message you like early in the morning, right? We're all on different time zones. So manage your energy in terms of when to check and when not to check. You know, you can have the notifications, but I want to make sure that you're not like, oh my God, it's going off at 5 in the morning, I should reply. So that's the other part to it. It's like how to manage all this moving forward.
And piggybacking off of that, don't feel compelled when you receive a message that you have to respond immediately or that you have to be available. Like if you have your notifications turned off or you're in the middle of something when that notification comes through and you can't get to it for an hour or two or whatever, then that's fine. Like that is perfectly acceptable. Just, you know, make sure that you set up whatever reminders you need to make sure that you don't forget to come back to that message and respond. But yeah, definitely make sure that you're protecting your space.
Yep.
Slack can eat up your time very quickly.
For reals. Yep. So are we good?
Any more questions? Or I mean, again, feel free if you think of something later to throw it up in Slack, and we'll definitely be responding.
Yep.
Awesome.
All
Yay.
right.
Cool.
Yay.
Nice job, team. Great job.
Thank you so much. It was great meeting everybody. And
Great to meet
I
y'all.
look forward to seeing your work. I'm excited.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
See you
so
later. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.